It was a Japanese-style bedroom laid with tatami mats. There was nothing else in there besides tatami. It looked really lonely, as expected from Nagato's place. This I could understand, but why she brought us to this guest room? Is the time machine hidden inside this room? Just as I was about to ask all sorts of questions, Nagato took out a futon from a closet and started laying it flat. She even brought out 2 blankets. I hope it's just me thinking too much, but you aren't asking us to sleep here, are you? Nagato carried the blankets and looked at me. The figures of me and Asahina-san were clearly reflected in her pupils.
Yes.
Here with Asahina-san? The 2 of us?
Yes.
I stole a glance at my side and saw Asahina-san looking embarrassed, her face blushing red furiously. That reaction was expected, I guess. But Nagato didn't seem concerned at all.
Now sleep.
Don't be so direct!
It is only sleeping.
That's what I intend to do anyway. I traded glances with Asahina-san. She blushed while I shrugged my shoulders. It was us who came to Nagato for help. If she wants us to sleep, then let's sleep. If we wake up and find ourselves back to where we came from, then it's quite a simple solution. Nagato reached for the light switch and began to mutter something. As I wondered, she can't be saying goodnight to us, could she? The lamp then flickered off. Well, I might as well get some sleep. I laid down and pulled the blanket over. The next moment, the lights were on again. The fluorescent tube slowly flickered and then stabilized. Huh? What's this strange feeling? Outside the window was the same night sky as before. I sat upright. Asahina-san also sat up, clutching her blanket. Her innocent, childlike face looked troubled, and she looked at me with a questioning glance. But of course, I didn't know anything either. Nagato stood like before as she turned on the lamp. I had a feeling that this wasn't Nagato's usual face. It was as if there was some kind of emotion inside this one. I looked closely at her pale white face. It was like she wanted to express something, but wasn't able to due to some kind of conflict within her heart. If I hadn't observed her face for quite some time, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. Though I can't guarantee that it wasn't just my imagination. The sound of breathing in could be heard by my side. I turned and saw Asahina-san messing around with a digital watch on her right wrist.
It can't be. Is this true?
I took a glance at her watch. Could that thing be the TPDD?
Oh no, it's just a digital watch.
Must be one of those self-synchronizing ones. Asahina-san smiled happily at me.
We returned to our time of origin. It's just after 9:30 at night. This is such a relief.
Standing by the door was the Nagato we knew. If I had to distinguish the two besides the lack of glasses, then this Nagato Yuki was the one that softened up a bit. Seeing her there 3 years later, I finally understood. The Nagato before me has indeed changed a bit since the first time I saw her in the literature club room. The change was so small that she probably doesn't even realize it herself.
How did you do it?
Selective freezing of liquefied connected data within spacetime, preserving it until the known destination within the spacetime continuum, and finally unfreezing the data. And that is now.
Asahina-san attempted to stand up, then her knees softened and she knelt down again.
Could it be? It's impossible. Nagato-san, did you?
Nagato remained silent. What's wrong?
It would seem that Nagato-san stopped time itself. She probably had this room frozen in place for 3 years until today, right?
Yes.
This is unbelievable, to be able to stop time.
I thought to myself, it seems like we've safely returned to the future. I could tell just by looking at Asahina-san's reaction. She was the type who wore her heart on her sleeve. Oh well, I'll believe the frozen time theory for now. Right now, I can pretty much tolerate anything. No matter what it is, I can basically accept it without any problems. It's all good, but this wasn't the first time I'd visited Nagato's home. She invited me here more than a month ago, but at that time, I only saw the living room and not the guest room. I wasn't even aware it existed back then. So, in other words, what the hell's going on here? I looked at Nagato, and she looked at me. In other words, when I visited for the first time and heard her story concerning data explosions, there was another me sleeping in the room next door?
Yes.
Hey, Does that mean back then you already knew what would happen? Including me in today's events?
Yes.
From my perspective, the first time I met Nagato was during the start of school term, when Haruhi thought up the SOS Brigade. But Nagato had already met me at Tanabata 3 years ago. For me, that only happened a moment ago, but she told me that was already 3 years ago. This is just too much for my brain to handle. Asahina-san and I looked stunned. I always knew Nagato was capable, but I never thought she'd be omnipotent.
Not entirely true. This was a special exception, an emergency. Unless it is very important, this method is rarely used.
Does that mean we were considered very important? Thank you, Nagato.
It doesn't matter.
Nagato nodded her seemingly cold face, and then handed me the Tanzaku with the geometric symbols drawn on it. I received it and noticed the paper quality had worn out a lot. Oh yeah, the symbols on this Tanzaku. Can you tell me what they mean? I didn't think anyone could read some nonsensical symbols drawn by Haruhi, so I simply meant it as a joke.
I am here.
What?
That is what's written on it.
I'm getting more and more confused now. Could these Nazca-like drawings or symbols or whatever be some sort of alien language? Nagato didn't answer that question. Asahina-san and I left Nagato's home and walked under the moonlit sky. Asahina-san, do you know why you had to bring me to the past? Asahina-san tried her hardest to think, then lifted her head and said in a very soft voice,
I'm sorry, how do I say it? Basically, I'm at the bottom of the chain. I'm kind of like the intern at this point.
But you're by Haruhi's side.
That's because I never thought that she'd catch me and force me to join.
Such a cute expression.
I'm merely following orders of my superiors or higher up, so even I don't know the meaning there is behind the actions I take.
Looking at the blushing Asahina-san, I thought to myself, could that superior be none other than the adult Asahina-san? It was a baseless speculation, but since the only time travelers I know are the normal Asahina-san and the adult Asahina-san, I can't be blamed for thinking that. I see. I still didn't understand. If that adult Asahina-san came to drop me a hint, then she would know what would happen to us. And it seems she never told Asahina-san anything either. Just what was going on here? It's no use getting a headache over it. If Asahina-san doesn't understand it, there's no way I would. Nagato said there's more than one way to travel through time. I guess future time travelers have their own set of rules. I hope someone will explain it to me when all is said and done. I parted ways with Asahina-san at the station. Her small figure once again bowed in thanks. Then she left, as though it were a great pity. After she was out of sight, I headed home as well. And it was then that I realized I left my bag in the club room. The next day, which was July 8th, for my consciousness, it really had only been one day, but for my body, 3 years and 1 day had passed since I last went to school. I went to school empty-handed and headed straight to the club room, then went to the classroom after retrieving my bag. It seems Asahina-san had already been there, as her bag was nowhere to be seen. Arriving in the classroom, I saw Haruhi sitting there looking intently out of the window, as if fully expecting the arrival of aliens. What's wrong? You've been looking depressed since yesterday. Have you been picking and eating toxic mushrooms or something?
Nothing really, just thinking about something that happened in the past. Something that happened to me during Tanabata.
I shuddered at once. What memories were those? I didn't dare ask her, though. I see. Haruhi turned her head and watched the clouds. I shrugged my shoulders. I have no intention of lighting the fuse to that bomb. Anyone with common sense would do the same. After school, the literature club room once again became the underground headquarters of the SOS Brigade. Haruhi only said,
Throw away the bamboo shoot, doesn't matter anymore.
and then left at once. The commander's armband looked rather lonely being left on the table. She'll return to her eccentric, unreasonable self tomorrow. She's that kind of person after all. Asahina-san wasn't there either. Only Nagato Yuki was in the room alongside me and Koizumi playing chess. Unable to resist his religious passion for chess, I agreed to let him teach me how to play. I had thought Koizumi switched to chess because he was crap at Othello, but it seems I was wrong. He was crap at chess as well. I took out one of Koizumi's pawns with my knight while glancing at Nagato, who was looking intently at the chessboard with her blank face. Say, Nagato, I don't get it at all. Is Asahina-san really from the future? Nagato slowly tilted her head.
Yes.
But I just feel a sense of paradox between heading to the past and returning to the future. That was expected. If there's no continuity between the past and the future, and if we went back 3 years ago, went to sleep over there and reawakened in the present, then the present we're in now should be different from the present we were in yesterday, right? Yet, from the outcome, I had given Haruhi an idea she shouldn't have had, and that idea had brought Haruhi to North High, enhancing her interest in non-human life. It's possible that if I didn't travel back 3 years ago, maybe everything would have never happened. Judging from the tone of adult Asahina-san, she seems to know more than us. In other words, continuity does exist between the past and the future. This contradicts with what Asahina-san told me earlier. Even I can figure out that much.
As long as there is no conclusion to the paradox theory, there is no way to prove that there is no paradox.
Nagato said that calmly, giving a strange expression that read, "There, that should explain everything." That explanation may indeed be enough for you, but I still don't understand at all. Nagato lifted her smooth white neck and looked at me.
Soon you will understand.
She then went back to her usual seat and returned to her world of books. Koizumi now spoke.
That's the case. Right now my king is being checked by your rook. This is sure a problem for me. Where should I escape to?
Koizumi picked up his king, then casually placed the king into his jacket pocket. He then showed me his palm like a magician revealing his tricks.
Well, is there a paradox with me doing this?
I toyed around with my rook with my fingers and thought, I'm not going to play some stupid Zen philosophy games with you, and I don't plan to satisfy myself with abstract topics, so I'm not going to answer your question. In any case, there's no doubt that Haruhi is a paradoxical existence. The same could be said for this world.
Besides, a king means nothing to us. Instead, it is the queen that plays a more important role.
I placed the white rook on the box where the black king was standing. Queen to knight 8. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I just hope it's not something that'll give me a major headache. Nagato remained silent while Koizumi smiled and said,
I think it's best for things to remain peaceful. Or would you prefer it if something were to happen?
I snorted and drew a circle by my name on the score chart.